even with Caleb when he first moved in, that was just that immediate bond, making comments like, "Is this family real?" That I remember one night we were laying down with him, and he made the comment, "Is this real?" And I said to him, "What do you mean? Is what real? Is this family really real?" And I mean, you don't just walk away from those words, and that'll be something that I'll hear for the rest of my life, And even though we said to him, and he could feel it, and we responded, "Yes, this is real. We're always going to be here for you." There were a lot of obstacles that he, as any of us, we can't just live that life of abuse and neglect for 5 years and all of a sudden have someone say to you, "I'm here forever, I'm your forever family," and there not be obstacles. There was an immediate bond, but there were a lot of obstacles. So many children in Alabama's foster care system, or foster care in general, are separated from their siblings. And I started searching in Alabama, and we didn't have any service available to bring siblings together. So that is where Camp Hope was birthed from.
First of all, I just want to welcome you and thank you so much for coming to our Camp Hope Family Day today. If it is your first time, raise your hand. All right!
And we had no idea whenever we started Camp Hope that 4 years later we would be meeting our son. So it's just unreal because we had a lot of fear, anxiety. I mean, starting something brand new about, how would this go? What would we, who's going to support it? Who's going to be a part of it? So we really started praying, not knowing what, I knew what the need was. I just didn't know how to make it happen.
Dear God, I just pray that each one of us has a great time today.
It was not long after I started Camp Hope that is when God brought Lee Marshall and I together. And that's when Camp Hope became a program of Kids to Love. And what's so neat behind that is when I started Camp Hope, I could only serve a few number of children because we were in a smaller location, and had we not joined forces with Kids to Love, with Lee, then we would have never have been able to serve children on the level that we're serving now.
And so it's through Kids to Love that Camp Hope has just grown in a way.
Which means our son would not have been part of that weekend.
How much do y'all love Beverly, first of all, right?
And the reason that I say that is it was a last minute situation. I typically have to plan the children that come to Camp Hope weeks in advance, and it was one of my largest weekends, and I received a phone call from someone at State DHR asking if we could add these children at the last minute. And if we had been at our first location before we joined Kids to Love, the answer would have had to have been no, because there wouldn't have been room. We wouldn't have been able to serve. And then to see how everything has evolved, and to know that if things had not shifted and changed, then we would have never have met our son. It was just a typical Camp Hope weekend, and had a sibling group of children come in, and there was just something about the minute that Caleb showed up. I mean, there was a connection, and to the point that I even told one of our other staff there, I said, there's something about that little boy. And for our little guy, there had been so much trauma, come from a very abusive home, and he was scared. He was very scared. And so there was a lot that night that we roasted marshmallows. I would just sit and hold him because you could just tell that he was scared. And so it was the following Monday. He was with us at Camp Hope for the weekend, and it was the following Monday, without going into too many details, of where I received the phone call that that he needed a home. And we thought it was going to be for a short period of time. And that's when I called Jeromy.
We fostered approximately 60 some odd children over a 10-year period of time, and then we got out of it, so yes, we have been that resource. Sometimes it's been a night, sometimes it's been a lifetime, because we ended up adopting 4 of our children out of the system. And when I received the phone call that day, I mean, we were adamant that we're done. Of course, Beverly's heart started to bleed, and when she called me, she said, "What do you think about, this child only needs a place to go for a couple of weeks, I think." And I said, "No, you know how that turns out. We adopted 3 of our kids that it was only supposed to be a couple of weeks."
Okay, now that sounds negative, like about our kids.
Well, I mean,
so you want to?
That
means like we were stuck with them.
But y'all are glad y'all made those decisions.
Yes.
We're glad we made those decisions. But whenever she asked me, I said, "Have you lost your mind? Haven, our baby, is going off to college this year. I'm getting too old for this. I can't do this." And the moment I hung up the phone, I felt the Spirit just say, "You're so selfish." And I knew that I'm put on this earth to do something for somebody at all times. You don't just do it for a period of time and then retire. And I had retired. I raised my kids. They're gone off to college. They've married, and we have grandchildren that are older than this little boy. And there was something that said, "No, you're supposed to do this." So that's when I texted her back, and I said, "When you've done it to the least of these, bring him home." Don't let him go. Don't let him get off.
Oh, I think he did.
No, see, he's still pulling. Can you get him?
I had not even left the parking lot yet from where I pulled over to call him. And, I get that text from him that says, this is what we need to do. And again, even when we made that decision, we thought it was just to fill in a gap for a few weeks. And it was like immediately. I mean, there was such a bond. And that doesn't always happen whenever you adopt. Sometimes that takes a while for that bond to take place. And with Caleb, that wasn't the case. I mean, it was an immediate bond. And for him, I believe, and we believe, that it's really the first time in his life where he felt safe in a family. He felt safe going to bed at night. He felt safe waking up in the morning. He felt safe going to the pantry, and so for him, it was an immediate bond. And even when we started the process, we were not even licensed at that time. DHR had to do an emergency license and started working that process with us. And, we told them our daughter's graduating high school. We're really just going to help. And I mean, it was just a complete heart change on our end. And I mean, now we know God created this little boy for our family, no doubt.
You understand that adoption is a permanent thing, that you cannot undo an adoption easily or readily, and that's for the reason that you are taking this child to raise as your own.
Yes, I do.
And you and your husband are both in agreement with this.
Yes.
And if you could quit smiling long enough.
The day of the adoption, I mean, we could see with him immediately. And we thought for him and his age, only being 7 years old, feeling like months ago that he was with us forever, that it would almost be like another day for him or another. And that day, because there's a phrase and 2 words that he really has struggled with, and that's saying "I love you," and that's saying "Mom" or "Dad." And starting that day after his adoption was finalized is when he started using those words.
And you've come with 1 or 2 people today. This is extended family, including children.
Yes.
Your former baby.
Yes.
Your family is in support of this petition for adoption.
Most definitely.
Y'all love Caleb and he loves y'all.
Yes.
Okay, this is what we call a final decree. So this means once we sign this, it's all over today. You don't have to come back to court. You can just go and
And that's when you know what permanency means to a child
Are you happy with that?
and how it can change in their security, who they are.
So the decree has been signed, and he is your son.
I had forgotten what my purpose is in life, and I've now realized that at that moment that is my purpose, is to raise this child.
And I would just like to encourage families that it's never going to be the perfect moment. When you feel that calling, explore it. And that doesn't mean you may not be ready today, but start getting your questions answered. Connect with groups that have foster parents that are new or that's been doing it for years, and get those questions answered, because it's never going to be the right time. I can tell you, being a foster or adoptive parent is one of the hardest things you will ever do in life, and it is absolutely the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in life.